came to me as a voice major in the fall of 2015 as a transfer student, and he was a member of Troubled Soul, the university choir, sang in the gospel choir, led solos. He won competitions regionally and nationally for us. Zabriel is one of our stellar alums. We are excited to have him here to share with you the culture of where he's from, which is St. Helena Island, South Carolina, where they speak Gullah language. So Zabriel's going to tell you a little bit about Gullah and their storytelling. Zabriel is also a member of Phi Nu Alpha, the Delta Beta chapter of Phi Nu Alpha. He's a fall 2017 initiate, and we are just excited to have him back, and we hope that you enjoy this. They are going to open with our lineage linking song, A Change Is Gonna Come.
Sinfonia, come brothers, hail, may Phi Nu Alpha ever reign. Our sense and mercy pledge to thee, all hail, all hail, all hail, Sinfonia.
I was born by the river in a little town. Oh, and just like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long, long time coming, and I know change gon' come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been tough, and I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's out there beyond the sky. It's been a long, change gon' come. Oh, testing, 1, 2. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you. I would like to give thanks to Dr. Carly Johnson for inviting me today, and to the Alabama State Department of Music for hosting today's event. Throughout my life, I've always believed in this core cultural principle, and that is this: culture is always speaking to you. I've heard that still small voice inside urging me to embrace the rich culture of the Gullah people. It could be my passion for storytelling, or how I blend the sounds of opera, classical music, and Gullah music. Whatever form those what I call whispers take is not a coincidence. And tonight I welcome you to a Gullah evening with Zabriel. My name is Zabriel Rivers, and it is my deepest honor to share this evening of culture, music, and storytelling with you. I am a Gullah Geechee operatic countertenor and storyteller hailing from St. Helena Island, South Carolina. The Gullah Geechee people are descendants of West Africa, mostly the countries Sierra Leone and Gullah, and we were brought to the Americas enslaved to work the rice, indigo, and cotton plantation fields in the southeastern coast of the United States. The Gullah Geechee language is an African Creole that blends English with various West African influences, developed as a way for people from diverse backgrounds to communicate. Its vocabulary and grammar are rooted in both African and European languages. It is the only distinct African Creole language in the United States and has influenced traditional Southern speech. The first half of tonight's show is entitled, a concert entitled The Gullah Praise House. And the Gullah Praise House honored our sacred spaces where my ancestors created to worship freely. There were small wood-floored, one-room praise houses where they clapped, shout, and sang, danced, and West African ritual was born in bondage. These gatherings were acts of survival, spirituality, and joy. And I will share traditional Gullah storytelling following, which will be keeping the memories of our ancestors alive. Despite centuries of displacement, exploitation, and systemic erasure, Gullah culture endures. Our music, the spirituals, was more than just songs. These were lifelines carrying coded messages for escape, whispering hope in times of despair, and connecting people across generations. Ladies and gentlemen, a Gullah evening with Zabriel. I always begin the show by singing a prayer called Eternal Life by Olive Duncan. Following that will be three spirituals entitled I'm Going to Tell God All My Troubles, Ride on King Jesus, and River Chant, followed by storytelling. I'm going for telling the road was rocky when I get home. I'm going for telling the road was rocky when I get home. And many times I falling. If I hadn't kept on calling, and I'm going to tell God the road was rocky when I get home. Ooh. Cause he brought me through every danger. Now I know I ain't no stranger. And I'm gonna tell him the road in my trials when I get home. Right on, King Jesus. No man can hinder me. Right on, King Jesus. Right on. No man can hinder me. Right on, King Jesus. No man can hinder me. Right on, King Jesus. Right on. No man can hinder me. In the creek in the morning, very well, very well. In the creek in the morning, very well, very well. In the creek in the morning, very well, very well. In the creek in the morning, very well, very well. Right on, King Jesus. No man can hinder me. Right on, King Jesus. Right on. No man can hinder me. No man can hinder me. Right on, right on, right on, right on, Jesus. Wind down the river, wind down the river. The second half of the show is Gullah storytelling. And storytelling is very important in our culture because it is what passes down those traditions from generation to generation. And as I mentioned at the start of the show, the Gullah people are descendants of the West African country, Sierra Leone. And there long ago lived a man who was very wise and well respected in his village. And he lived in this village with his 4 sons and his wife, who was pregnant with what would soon be the 5th child. And as he would normally do, one early morning, he woke up and packed his provisions and things that he needed to go hunting. And he called for the 4 boys. And he said, "Kumbaya children." Kumbaya in Gullah means come by here. "Take on a foot in the hand. We going way upon yonder for hunt food for Nyama." And Nyama in Gullah means to eat. So that's what the 4 boys did. They came running down. But before they got there, the mother stopped them. And she said, "Poor mammy can't do things like addition of that no more. Ona need this reaching on your help into the rice field." She was pregnant, so she needed her boys to stay behind and help her. And the father agreed. So he finished packing his provisions, and the 4 boys and their mother stood in the garden and watched as the father walked past the garden, through the rice field, and disappeared off into the woods. Well, the 4 boys did everything their mother asked them to do. They cut wood, they helped her in the rice fields, and when the day came to an end, they helped her prepare supper. And as she prepared supper, she began to pass each son their bowl. And before the oldest son began to yam up his food, he said to the mother, "Father hasn't come back yet." Or in Gullah, "Father ain't come back at all." So the mother responded and she said, "Father sure ain't come back at all." But it had only been one day and they didn't think much of it, so they yammed up their food, they cleaned up, and they went to bed. Well, the next day, same thing. They did all the chores that they had set for that day. And when it was time for supper, right before they yammed up their food, another son said, "I ain't come by at all." But they didn't think anything of it. So they yammed up their food, they cleaned up, and they went to bed. Well, this happened night after night until eventually they totally forgot about their father. And no one had asked about him again. Well, the big day finally came. The mother gave birth to that 5th baby. And who can guess what gender that baby was?
A girl.
No. It was a baby boy, a healthy baby boy. And the village stepped in and helped nurture that child in their father's absence. And that baby did as babies do. He crawled, then eventually he took his first steps, and one day he uttered his first words. And his first words were, "Where is una father?" Can you believe that is what prompted the mother to send the 4 older boys to go look for their father? So that's what they did. They went through the garden, through the rice fields, and disappeared off into the woods as they saw their dad did a long time ago. But they immediately found themselves lost. It had been so long they didn't even remember which way he had went. Until the first son confessed the secret. And he said, "Look at this in your nose. Me know how to stick any trail from yonder yonder." And the other brothers were surprised. So they said, "Please do it." So he began to sniff. And he would find the trail. He would say, "Father went that way." And when they got lost again, he would sniff again. And he would say, "Father went that way." And eventually they came upon a clearing. And in that clearing were a pile of bones and their father's weapons that they knew belonged to him. So all four boys were very sad. Until the second son announced he had a secret too. And he told them, look at this in your hand. Me know how for did any bone how bad it's get around. Watch me now, do it. So they said, please do. And he got on his hands and knees and he began to piece together every part of his father's skeleton. And when he was done, he dusted his hands off and he looked at his brothers real proud. But they were still sad because it was just a skeleton. Well, the third brother stepped up and said, I too have a special ability. And they said, what? He said, I can take any skeleton and wrap him in his skin, the blood of the vein. And that's what he did. He began to speak what at West Africans call conjure words. And as he began to speak those words over his father's skeleton, his skeleton began to be wrapped with veins, arteries, blood, muscle, tissue, and skin. And when he was done, his father was laying there like a peacefully sleeping man. And when he turned to look at his brothers, they were still sad because it was just a dead man laying there. Well, the fourth brother said, no better time than this. I have a secret as well. So the brother said, what? And he said, me have to take the wind into me mouth and blow him into his nose and watch it wake up. And that's what he did. He took the deepest breath he could get and he blew into his father's nose and his father woke up. And the four boys were so happy, they cheered, their father embraced them. And he said, I'm too proud of y'all. Y'all took it, put it in hand and came way from upon yonder to bring me back home. And they rejoiced and they started making their way back to the village. Well, as they got close to the village, the people in the village there were working and they looked up and they said, it should be 4 boys coming. And then someone said, no, I see 5. They must have found their father. So everyone rushed to meet them. And when they did, they were all dancing and having a good time and celebrating their father's return. Well, while they were all celebrating, the father raised his hand and everyone in the village got quiet. And he instructed the men to go out and kill the fattest cow because in 3 days' time, he would have a huge party celebrating his return. And he told the women in the village, follow the men, and when they kill that cow, cut off its tail and bring it to me. And they listened. They brought him the cow's tail, he washed it, he cured it, he de-skinned it, leaving just a little hair on the end. And he began to wrap it with emeralds and diamonds and all fine jewels that he could find. And when he was done, it was the most beautiful heirloom that looked like it belonged to someone of royalty. And then he attached it to a rod, and every night leading to that party, he walked around the village waving that cowtail switch. Well, the night of the party finally came. And everyone was singing and dancing and eating and having a good time. And he sat there and watched. And he held up that cowtail switch. And the whole party got quiet. And he stood in the middle of the party. And he said, this is young in my hand, named cowtail switch. And he grind upon the child that took a foot in the hand and did the most for bring me back home. Well, when the boys heard that, they pushed and ran to the front of the party. And the oldest son said, "It grind to me because I didn't want to find a trail. Nobody know where you been and why." And the next son said, "No, but when I found you in a dead man, you nothing but a pile of bone. I didn't want that thing, put all the thing together like a shit of that thing." Then the next son said, "No, it ain't me that wrapped you back up in your skin, vein, and blood thing." And the fourth son said, "No, it ain't me that blew the breath in your body, would have still be laying dead." And they began to fight and push and shove, and it was just so much going on. The father raised that cowtail switch up again. And they got quiet. And he said, I have made my decision. And he gave the cowtail switch to the baby. And he said to everyone at that party, he wanted to leave them with this. One is not truly dead until he is forgotten. End of story. Yeah, I feel like a standing committee. Thank you. Stories are very important. Like I said, it passes down oral traditions, and keeps our people and our history and our stories alive. And in the 1930s, the United States government funded students and researchers to go out into the Gullah Nation. And that land, that region spans from Jacksonville, North Carolina, all the way down to Jacksonville, Florida, where you can find the Gullah people. And those researchers, they went to talk to root workers, they went and talked to elders in the community, they went and talked to sharecroppers, just to find out more about Gullah traditions and customs and beliefs. And they came upon an old man who started telling them about ancient Africans in West Africa who could fly, walk underwater, shape-shift. And the reporters asked him, well, how come I don't hear about these things now? How come I don't hear anyone speaking about these phenomena back in West Africa, these ancient Africans? And he explained it like this. When the Africans were packed tightly into those slave ships and brought across the Atlantic Ocean, between the heat, the rocking of the boat, the sickness, the crying and wailing, the death, it was believed that a lot of those memories were wiped out of their memories. But not everyone, because when they got to the New World, they began to tell those stories to their children, those who remembered, their children and their children. And then he began to tell a story about a young slave girl named Soya. And Soya was very tall, a deep dark brown complexion. And she lived on the largest plantation in South Carolina at that time. And her overseer, who was a poor white man who lived nearby, who was forced to come work as an overseer because they had been getting so bad with slaves flying away and these phenomena happening. So that all the enslavers started to hire local whites to come and patrol and make sure no one got away. Well, Soya, she walked around the plantation with an air of confidence. She had her head up high because she knew if things got bad enough, she could tap into her old ancestral powers and fly away. And I believe I have the power to fly as well. And if anyone, can anyone raise their hand if they're from Jacksonville, Florida, to Jacksonville, North Carolina, or the Gullah Geechee community? Okay, I see some people. The ability to fly does not work on a cue. You can't just get up and fly. It has to be evoked in a state of fear. For example, if someone busts through this door, I'm gonna get up and fly right out by it. And if you laugh, you might be Gullah too. So one day, Soya is working in the plantation, and she's working hard, but she has her baby strapped and tied around her back. And she's bending over and she's working, but the baby's crying. So the overseer came up to her and he said, "Gal, you better shut that baby up or I'll do it for you." So she stepped back and twisted the baby around to the front, and she began to nurse the baby and do everything she can to calm her baby down. Well, he looked at her and he said, "I didn't tell you to stop working. Gal, get back to work." And she just ignored him. She was so scared, she didn't know what to do. She wanted the baby to stop crying, so she just kept tending to her baby. Well, that upset him. He took out his whip and he lashed her. And when he lashed again, he hit the baby. And that is what evoked that fear in her. She had never been so violated before. Well, she began to walk away from him, and all the workers in the field was looking like, "What's wrong with Soya?" She ran to an old man named George on the plantation who would tell her these stories of her ancestors who could fly, shapeshift, walk underwater. And she said, I gotta get out of here. I believe and I am ready to go. And he said, if you believe, go. And like a flock of birds, the others will join you. So she grabbed her baby and she began to run. And as she began to run, all the other slaves said, Sonia, stop. Gal, you're gonna get all of we killed. But she didn't listen. And as she kept running, some of the slaves started saying, I believe too. And they dropped their work tools and they began to follow her. Well, the overseer saw her and said, I'm gonna catch you, girl. And he began to chase her. And the closer he got to her, and the more she ran, her feet began to lift up off the ground as if she was walking on a staircase. And all the people all the slaves who believed her started to fly as well. And her wings were as big and black. And she flew over the fields, the various cotton plantations, the various indigo plantations. She saw all the rice plantations as she was flying over, and flew off to freedom. Now the others who didn't believe, who weren't ready, things didn't end bad for them in the end, because eventually they were all freed. But one thing they remembered to do was pass down these stories. And they told their children, who told their children, who told me, and now I'm telling you that the African people could fly. Ladies and gentlemen, a Gullah evening with Zabriel.
All right, do any of you have any questions for our artists? We have about another 5 or 6 minutes. Any questions for our artists today? Any questions? No. If not, okay, let's give them another round of applause.